is your world. Become the adventure.
Yeah, you read that right. Final Fantasy X is over 20 years old. That many years later, and we must have gotten like 10 more games? Well, we might have not gotten a lot, but they've been really good, right? Now, I've never been a big fan of Final Fantasy, but I decided to play through 16. I was excited to hear that the director of Devil May Cry was leading it for its combat, and it seemed like a dream come true for me. I mean, Devil May Cry combat in a Final Fantasy game, that would just be great. It sucks. I hated it. The story and world I loved, but the combat was so boring and tedious and was so blatantly a lazy recycle of Devil May Cry characters into an RPG, but more on that later. That's important here because it actually pushed me to go play Final Fantasy X afterwards. I have some short childhood memories. I mean, look, I even have the physical PS2 copy. Like I was just saying, this is my original copy from like a 2000 whatever, right? Characters with voices, real-time facial expressions, complete 3D environments. This was the marketing on the back of the box. Oh man, this is gonna be great. I've actually never beat Final Fantasy X, and after playing the Slogfest that was 16. Is good. Gameplay fucking sucks, padded out gameplay, really monotonous, really repetitive. I didn't like it. I'm glad I'm done. I was visibly excited to experience the beginning of what I consider to be the golden age of gaming. While I may be young, I've played many games in my time. Like seriously, we're talking in the thousands here, and that's not an exaggeration. And I can tell you that games from this era knew they were games. Full stop. They didn't overload you with hours of tutorials, story plots, microtransactions, stores, battle passes, whatever, all in the beginning. When you start the game, they show you the plot, then how to play the game, and then within an hour, you're hooked. Those differences were so immediately obvious when I booted up Final Fantasy X. That we are like, 15 minutes into this game? Maybe 15 is a stretch. We already are started. We're already at a high point. If this were a game made today, we would need 2-3 hours for this event to happen. Now, back then it was like, let's just get started. I love it. Final Fantasy X within the first hour accomplished what Final Fantasy 16 did at 6 hours. I was introduced to the game's plot, half the main cast, the basics on how to play, and most importantly, I was hooked in, didn't want to stop playing. And if you know me, you know that gaming is a beloved hobby of mine. I mean, it's literally my favorite hobby of all time. Hell, my first words might have been PlayStation. But since I started streaming, I only game when I stream. Every night except Saturday on Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok. Links in the description. So when I say that I couldn't wait to stream this game, and I had trouble ending stream because I couldn't put it down, that's genuinely saying something. I had the opposite feeling with Final Fantasy 16. By now, you're probably asking yourself,
Chris, you're the GOAT, but why do you keep comparing Final Fantasy X to Final Fantasy 16?
Good question, subscriber of mine. Click the button. And that's simply because I want to demonstrate why a 20-plus-year-old game is so superior to a game released only 2 years ago, even though Final Fantasy 16 should be the better option with leaps and bounds of technological advances at its side. So let's start with the gameplay. The gameplay of 10 is a very standard turn-based combat system with summons added to the mix. Sounds boring, right? I mean, doesn't this...
That we may bring an end to the strife and found a new...
look cooler and more fun? Nope. It looks cooler, but what you're really doing is actually a simplified version of Final Fantasy X, if you can believe that. In 16, I found myself mashing the same button until my big, flashy, strong button was off cooldown. Click that once, let it all happen while the enemies just take it, rinse, repeat. It's actually more of a disappointment if you're like me and you're a fan of the Devil May Cry series. A lot of the moves are blatant copies of either Dante, Nero, or Virgil. But enemies in Final Fantasy 16 are also not like Devil May Cry. A lot of the times you'll just see them walking up to you and not do anything smart. It's like they really want to die. It's like they're committing suicide in front of you. Bosses are different, they are harder, but honestly not by much.
They're essentially slightly smarter sponges that just absorb everything, and they do more damage, and there's some things you gotta dodge, like some attack patterns, but really it's nothing complicated. I felt way more engaged using Final Fantasy X's turn-based combat system, where I would have to buff my team, debuff the enemy, watch out for their attack patterns, etc., than the monotonous action gameplay that Final Fantasy 16 has. Though 16 was definitely flashier and cooler to look at. So the combat in 10 was much more engaging and fun than 16. What about the story? Honestly, the same could be said about the story. Final Fantasy X respects and doesn't waste your time. 2 hours in and I'm sucked in and I can't put it down. With 16, it took me about 4 hours for the game's initial plot to be realized, and that was accomplished only by watching cutscenes. I played no part in the story. It just happened in front of me. Sporadically, I'll walk from one hallway to another, maybe a tutorial here and there, but realistically speaking, 80-90% of my time was watching a 4-hour movie for an intro to a game.
Well, how is it a bad thing? How else would the story be explained to us?
Through gameplay. I mean, that's what a game is, right? That's what it does best. Final Fantasy X, I think, does this perfect for an RPG, even by today's standards. Most of the time, I was watching cutscenes, it's true, but I was also participating. At least it felt that way, because by the time Sin came in and swallowed me whole, only 10 minutes had elapsed. More plot happened and the game was rolling an hour in.
Like, to get to this point in Final Fantasy 16 took us 3 streams and like 8-9 hours of gameplay. Right now we're at what, like hour and a half. I've been going very slow and we're already at the main HQ, the main hub.
Short, sweet, to the point, without sacrificing quality storytelling. The whole game is about 40 hours, give or take, and at no point did I feel the game dragged on. Well, except for the random battles. Yeah, that needs to go. Sadly, that was a symptom of the time, so I can't really hold it against it, since at the time it was pretty unheard of for a Japanese RPG to not have random encounters, but it's still something that hasn't aged well and I truly despise. Even with that, 16 was still even more of a drag. That being said, which story is better? To say which story is better in this case is up to taste, so I won't really address it too much. I will say that Final Fantasy XVI really has a great story in it. The story is more mature with darker themes, and I really enjoyed that. In fact, had the pacing been better and the fluff cut out, I think the story would be better than Final Fantasy X. It just simply appealed to me more. But 10's pacing is so superior with the perfect amount of cutscenes between gameplay that I have to personally give it to Final Fantasy X.
Bro, I'm liking it. This game is a classic by every sense of the word.
Now the main question. Was 10 better, and why was it better even though 16 is newer? This is an important question, and I really think I can summarize this pretty easily. And that's simply because 10 knows it's a game. 16 tries to be both a game and a movie. With how prevalent streaming has become, I think companies understand that the more a game is streamed, the more it's pushed for people to play, like free advertising. They also want their games to be watched and easily watchable for those who might not be the biggest gamers, just to try and incentivize more people to buy a game that they've been watching a lot of. 16 puts a lot of emphasis on cutscenes, flashy and entertaining moves, attention to detail on character designs, music, etc. While 10 has great character designs in my opinion as well, the animations were jank and stiff, the voice acting can sometimes feel disconnected and strange.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
Lots of weird and cringy moments, and there might be too much gameplay compared to the amount of cutscenes. It also had puzzles where 16 had no puzzles. I mean, those are probably not that interesting to watch, I would assume. And I actually know that Square succeeded in this goal of making it an enjoyable game to watch. As of streaming Final Fantasy XVI, a lot of my viewer base weren't really gamers, Since I'm a small streamer, it was really easy for me to talk to my viewers and ask them questions, and many of them straight up told me that I'm their only exposure to games. And likewise, most of the non-gamers straight up said 16 was more fun to watch than 10. The only people who disagreed were people that grew up with 10 or played 10 and know that 10 is the better game. And that makes perfect sense. There's a lot of eye candy, from the characters to the world to the music to the long, very well done and voice acted cutscenes. As a player, I was bored. I was finding myself going to my phone, zoning out for a minute or two. I logged in to play a game, not watch one. And with that, I can see why its sales pale in comparison to 10. 10 did have a longer time to sell those copies, but the original release of 10 outsold 16. 24 years later, and Final Fantasy X is still one of, if not the best mainline Final Fantasy games Square has developed. Whether that's a testament to how good 10 is, or how Square has misled one of their biggest franchises, is up to debate. But I don't know, that's just my opinion. These are just my thoughts. What do you guys think? Do you like 16 more? Have you played both? Did you only play one? Do you disagree with anything I said? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear it. Make sure to follow me on Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok, links in the description, for when I go live continuing my Final Fantasy marathon. Right now I'm halfway through Final Fantasy IX, and I started playing through Final Fantasy XIV online, which I'm really enjoying. Come hang out, I play with my viewers, crack Magic the Gathering booster packs, and I'll be doing a 24-hour live stream on May 14 through 15. That's right, 24 hours of non-stop gaming. Now to the Q&A. Question: why did you decide to play both? Actually, I didn't. It was kind of a sequence of perfect events. I just wanted to play 16. It was just on my list, and I went through, played it, and I kind of refused to give up on it because I did like the story. However, I had just gotten back into Magic the Gathering somewhere in that playthrough. Magic the Gathering did a Final Fantasy collaboration, and all of their pre-constructed decks were from Final Fantasy games. So there was 10, 7, 14, and 6. And my favorite right now is actually the Final Fantasy X deck. And seeing all those cards and all the art just brought back memories of playing through 10. So I just sporadically decided to play 10, and I'm going to call it a marathon because I'm really enjoying the Final Fantasy series. And I want to know where all the cards I'm playing, where they're from. I was also just really craving a turn-based game. Midway through playing this, I was like, man, this is not the itch that I wanted it to itch. And believe it or not, turn-based games are some of my favorite games, with Yakuza 8 and Persona 5 being on my top 10 games of all time. So, yeah, that's the long answer of why I decided to play both. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for staying till the end. Bye.